think everybody that is considering this buyout has to have a financial plan and has to have like a binary test. So I would look under the current assumption of, hey, I was retiring in 8 years. Here's circumstance A and problem set A. If I take the buyout, this is what it looks like instead. So I think you have to A/B test. I think that's absolutely critical in considering all this. Is my TSP funded enough to take this buyout, right? So the folks that are most likely to take this buyout, I think, are folks in their 50s and maybe going into the 60s. That's where oftentimes your prime earning years are. So are you kind of taking this buyout and not being able to later contribute to a TSP for the years to come? So I think you have to A/B test it. You have to say today versus, taking the buyout today versus 5 years from now. How does that impact my spending? Am I able to live with that difference in dollar amount? There's a degree of uncertainty, especially, right, working with the government. Unless you really foul something up, I think that it's a pretty stable income flow. So now all of a sudden you'd be trading in that stable income flow for a buyout, and you don't know if private sector will be as plentiful. You don't know if the first recession that comes around, you're going to be first in, first out. So there's lots of considerations. And for me, it always comes down to these are financial decisions that elicit a emotional response, right? Like, hey, instead of spending $60,000 a year in my retirement, I can spend $55,000 if I take out this buyout. Is that $5,000 of difference worth it for my mental health, for my ability to retire a little bit early? And really only the individual that's making that decision can answer it. I think all too often there's a short supply of folks who actually have those numbers in front of them to say, hey, under column A I can do this, under column B I can do that. Which one makes me happier? So I think the biggest problem is not knowing where you are, not knowing where you want to get to, and not having that roadmap of how might I get there most efficiently. That's the biggest problem I see. Secondly, and especially relevant to federal employees, is not fully, I'll say gaming, but let's say another word would be taking advantage of what's being offered to you. So much like, for example, in the private sector, you have a 401k. You have a 401k match. The first 6% of your income is matched dollar for dollar from your employer. If you don't at least contribute that first 6%, you are not taking full advantage of your compensation. That's free money. The government has the same sort of match, so that's something that everybody should at least be striving for. But especially with the nuances of federal employees, it's am I maximizing my cash earning years towards my retirement so that multiplier is greater, so that base is greater? Am I taking full advantage of all the programs, health insurance, vision insurance? Am I making sure that my children are staying on my insurance? Because candidly, government insurance is very, very, very good. It's very strong, this federal employee health insurance. So it's like, am I taking full advantage of that for my family? So I think all of these things are really important, and it's just, it all comes down to knowing the numbers. At the end of the day, that is what's absolutely critical.